Hello, my dear sleepy friend. Tonight, we'll take a journey into the workshop of a very special person, the Clockmaker. He has spent his life surrounded by gears, brass, and gentle ticking. Each clock on his shelves marks a moment, a memory, a heartbeat. Now, under the hush of night, he prepares to craft his final masterpiece, one not meant to measure time, but to hold it still, just for a while. Take a slow breath. Let the ticking calm you. The world can wait. You are here now, where time moves differently. Welcome to the Clockmaker's workshop. It's a quiet evening, one of those rare moments when time itself seems to slow down and the world outside fades away. You find yourself in a dimly lit workshop where a single lantern casts soft shadows against shelves filled with tools, parts, and half-finished projects. The scent of oil, brass, and old wood fills the air, wrapping around you like an old, comforting embrace. Around you, clocks of all shapes and sizes tick gently, their hands moving with patient precision. The hum of machinery fills the background, almost rhythmic, like the heartbeat of the world itself. Each tick, each tock, a step forward in the story of time. But in this space, time is more than just something to measure. It is something to create. And tonight, you will witness the Clockmaker's final work. Something more than just a clock. Something that holds the power to dream. For years, the Clockmaker's workshop had been a sanctuary, a place where time was not just something to be measured, but something to be understood. Here, with his tools and his intricate knowledge of gears, springs, and cogs, he had mastered the art of timekeeping. From grand clocks that towered over entire rooms to delicate pocket watches that could fit in the palm of a hand, he had created them all. Each tick, each tock was a small work of art, a moment captured in the precision of brass and glass. But as the years passed, the Clockmaker's hands grew older, his once steady fingers now a little more worn, a little less nimble. The lines of age began to show on his face, and the weight of time, ironically, had started to feel heavier on his own body. Yet his mind remained sharp, his love for his craft never waned. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over his workbench, he looked at his latest creation, a small, unassuming clock made of polished mahogany and delicate brass. But there was something different about this clock. It wasn't like the others. This one had an almost alive quality to it, a pulse, a beat, a rhythm that seemed to echo beyond mere mechanics. For days, the Clockmaker had worked on this timepiece. It was his last project, the one that would define his legacy. He didn't know exactly what it was at first. He only knew that it felt different from the very beginning. The clock's hands were smaller, more intricate than any he had crafted before. The gears seemed to hum with a subtle energy, as if they were meant to move in harmony with something larger, something more than time itself. As he sat down to examine the final touches, the Clockmaker felt a strange sensation wash over him. It was as though the clock were not simply a machine, but something else entirely. Something that could hear his thoughts, feel his emotions. The longer he looked at it, the more it seemed to breathe, its gentle ticking matching the rhythm of his own heartbeat. He reached out, his fingers brushing the edge of the clock's face. The moment he touched it, something changed. A soft melodic hum filled the room, as though the clock had come to life. The air shifted, the ticking slowed, and then, just for a moment, it stopped. And then, in that suspensed silence, the clockmaker heard it. A whisper. It wasn't a sound he could hear with his ears, but something deeper, a voice, faint but unmistakable, echoing in his mind. What is time, if not a dream? It seemed to ask. The clockmaker's heart skipped a beat. He sat back, staring at the clock as if seeing it for the first time. He had spent his life creating timepieces that marked the passage of time, but this was something else. This was not simply a machine that counted the seconds. This was a timepiece that dreamt. He wondered for the first time in his life if time was more than just a measurement. Perhaps it was a cycle, a rhythm that could feel, could imagine, could even wish. Perhaps it wasn't just about the moments that passed, but the ones that lingered, the dreams that filled the spaces between the ticks and tocks. The clockmaker's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the gears, his mind racing with the possibilities. What if this clock, his final masterpiece, could do something no other timepiece had ever done? What if it could record not just the moments, but the feelings, the dreams that time had created? What if it could capture the very essence of life, in all its fleeting beauty? As the clock's hands began to move again, then with a gentle rhythm, the clockmaker felt a deep sense of peace. This was it. This was the culmination of his work. His legacy would not be in the countless clocks he had made, but in this one, the timepiece that dreamt. The clock's ticking became a lullaby, a soft, rhythmic sound that seemed to carry the weight of time itself. And as the clockmaker sat back, exhausted but content, he closed his eyes for the last time. The clock would continue to tick, to dream, long after he was gone. For in the end, it wasn't the ticking of the clock that mattered. It was the story it told, the story of time, of life, and of dreams. And in the quiet of the night, as the soft hum of the clock filled the air, the clockmaker finally slept. And the timepiece that dreamt continued its endless ticking, carrying his legacy forward, one dream at a time. As the clockmaker slept, his final masterpiece continued to tick. The room, bathed in the soft glow of the candlelight, seemed to hum with the subtle rhythm of the timepiece. It was as if the very essence of the workshop had shifted. No longer just a place of creation, but a sacred space where time itself was alive, breathing, dreaming. Days turned into weeks, and the clock remained untouched, resting on the workbench where the clockmaker had left it. The only sound in the workshop was the rhythmic ticking, like a soft heartbeat that never ceased. The air around the clock seemed to shimmer with something intangible, a quiet energy that resonated in the silence. And then something remarkable happened. One evening, as the workshop settled into the quiet stillness of dusk, a visitor arrived. A young woman, weary from travel, stepped through the door, her eyes wide with the same curiosity that had once driven the clockmaker to create his first timepiece. She had heard of the great clockmaker and his masterpieces, and now she had come to see the legendary workshop for herself. She stepped into the room, her footsteps tentative at first, but soon she was drawn to the workbench, to the mysterious clock that seemed to call to her. She reached out, her fingers brushing the surface of the timepiece. The moment her hand made contact, a soft, melodic hum filled the air, just as it had for the clockmaker. The clock, still ticking steadily, seemed to respond to her touch, its rhythmic heartbeat growing stronger, more pronounced. She could feel it, the same sensation the clockmaker had felt, a presence within the clock, a gentle whispering that stirred her soul. "What is time?" she whispered to herself, echoing the question that had once filled the clockmaker's thoughts. And in that moment, the clock responded. The hands of the timepiece began to move faster, not in a rush, but in a fluid, graceful motion. The ticking grew louder, like a soft drum beat, and the room seemed to fill with an energy that was both comforting and powerful. The woman stood there, transfixed, watching as the clock's hands danced through time, each tick marking a new moment, each second carrying a story. The clock didn't just measure time, it held memories, it held dreams. It held all the moments that had passed and those yet to come. And as she watched, she began to see them. Fleeting images, flashes of memories that seemed to come from nowhere, yet felt deeply familiar. Moments from her own life, from the lives of others, all unfolding within the dance of the timepiece's hands. She closed her eyes, letting the images wash over her, the laughter of children, the quiet solitude of a morning walk, the warmth of a loved one's embrace. Each memory was different, yet connected by the thread of time, woven together by the clock's steady pulse. The woman didn't know how long she stood there, lost in the magic of the timepiece. But when she finally opened her eyes, the room had changed. The air was heavier, more charged with energy. The clock's ticking had slowed, almost as if it had caught its breath. And in that moment, she understood. The clockmaker had created more than just a timepiece. He had created a living thing, a clock that didn't just measure the passage of time, but felt it. A timepiece that could capture the dreams of those who touched it, the moments they held dear, the stories they carried within them. She smiled softly, knowing that the clockmaker's legacy would live on, not just in the craftsmanship of clocks, but in the stories they hold. The timepiece that dreamt was no longer just a machine. It was a portal, a way for anyone who touched it to connect with the past, the present, and the future. The young woman carefully picked up the clock, holding it gently in her hands. As she turned to leave, she felt the weight of its power, but also its beauty. She had been chosen, in some way, to continue the clockmaker's work, to carry his masterpiece into the world. And so she stepped out into the world beyond the workshop, the timepiece in hand, knowing that its story was far from over, the legacy of the clockmaker, of his dreams and his creations would continue to unfold, one tick at a time. As the woman walked into the night, the soft ticking of the timepiece in her hands echoed into the darkness. The clockmaker's final masterpiece had found its new keeper, and with her, it would continue to dream, to tell stories, and connect the past with the future. And somewhere, deep in the quiet workshop, the clockmaker slept, knowing that his work would never truly end. It would live on in the ticking of the timepiece, in the dreams it captured, and in the hearts of those who would one day come to understand what he had known all along. That time, in the end, is not something to be measured, but something to be felt. As she walked through the streets of the town, the clock began to reveal its true magic. The world around her shifted ever so slightly. The chatter of market vendors, the rustling of leaves in the breeze, the distant sound of a dog barking, all of it seemed to slow, as though she were walking through a dream, suspended in a moment that stretched just a little bit longer than usual. She stopped near a fountain, looking down at the shimmering water. Her reflection wavered on its surface, but for a brief instant she saw not just herself, but glimpses of people, strangers, travelers, friends, and family from days gone by. Faces she had never seen, memories of lives she had never lived. The clock had shown her not just her own path, but the paths of everyone it had ever touched. With a breath, she realized what she had to do. The timepiece wasn't just hers to carry. It was meant to be shared. It was a bridge, a thread that connected not only the past and future, but everyone who had touched it, everyone whose life had been touched by time itself. She traveled from town to town, carrying the clock with her, carefully wrapped in cloth, as though it was something fragile. In each place she visited, she would let the timepiece speak. Sometimes it would hum softly in her hands, other times it would remain still, waiting for the right moment. She began to notice that each person who came into contact with the clock would experience something unique. A musician, when he held it, heard melodies, strange, beautiful tunes that seemed to come from another world. A farmer, tired and worn from years of hard work, touched it and was suddenly flooded with memories of his childhood, of fields he had walked as a boy, of the first time he had planted seeds, and the joy of seeing them grow. And there were others. A widow, lonely and grieving, touched the timepiece and was overcome with the warmth of her memories of her late husband, his laughter, and the love they had shared. A young boy, full of hope and wonder, placed his hands upon it and was filled with dreams of adventures yet to come, of places he had only read about in books. Each person who touched the timepiece felt its magic, but they also felt something else, a deeper connection to the world, a sense that they were not alone in their journey, that their lives, no matter how small they seemed, were part of a much larger, much grander story, one that stretched beyond time, beyond memory, and beyond death. The timepiece had become more than just a clock. It was a keeper of stories, of dreams, of memories. It didn't just tell time, it felt time. It captured moments that might have been forgotten, bringing them back to life in the hearts of those who encountered it. One evening, after many months of traveling, the young woman arrived at a small village nestled in the hills. The people here were simple, humble, farmers, artisans, and families who lived with the seasons. They welcomed her warmly, offering food and shelter, curious about the timepiece she carried. As she shared the clock with them, one by one, the village seemed to come alive in a new way. The old woman who lived in the hill, who hadn't smiled in years, touched the clock and began to laugh softly, remembering the days when her children were small, running through the fields, their laughter ringing through the air. The blacksmith, with his calloused hands, held it and was filled with the memory of his first apprentice, long since grown into a successful craftsman, now teaching his own children. And then, as the evening drew to a close, the young woman took the clock in her hands once more, feeling the soft pulse of life within it. She realized that she could no longer carry it alone. The timepiece had shown her the truth, that time, though measured by hours and days, was more than just numbers. It was the connection between people, the moments that we shared, the memories that we carried with us, and the dreams that we passed on to those who came after. She carefully placed the clock on the mantel of the village's small meeting hall, a place where the community gathered for celebrations, for mourning, for stories. She knew that from this moment on, it would belong to them, to everyone who entered and left their lives. It would continue to dream, to hold their stories, their hopes, and their pasts. It would be a part of this village, of every life it touched. And as the young woman stepped back, watching the people of the village gather around the clock, her heart was light. She knew that the timepiece had found its place. It wasn't about one person or one story. It was about the shared journey, the moments we all experienced together, the ways our paths cross, and the dreams we carry with us. She turned and walked away, her journey complete. The timepiece would continue, its hands ticking softly, its dreams unfolding in the lives of those who touched it. And somewhere far away, the clockmaker smiled. As the young woman walked away from the village, the soft hum of the timepiece's ticking echoed in her mind, and she felt a peace that hadn't been there before. She had done what she needed to do, shared the clock, passed its story on to those who would cherish it, and now she could continue her journey, knowing that the clockmaker's final masterpiece would live on far beyond her own reach. The village, its people, their laughter, their lives, all now connected by the steady, patient ticking of the clock. Time had always been more than something to measure. It has always been about the moments, the connections, the stories, and the memories that flowed through the spaces between the seconds. The timepiece would carry all of it. As she walked into the distance, the gentle ticking of the clock, the echo of the clockmaker's final dream, seemed to fade into the soft embrace of the evening. The world around her grew quieter, the stars above beginning to twinkle as the night settled in. The wind rustled through the trees, and the soft ticking of time continued, steady, unwavering, and full of life. In the end, it was not the clock that mattered. It was what it carried, the dreams of all who touched it, the memories shared, and the stories told. And as the timepiece ticked on, so too did the stories of those who would come after. Each life, each moment, a new chapter in the endless journey of time. And with that, the story of the clockmaker, the timepiece, and the dreams it held would continue quietly, gently, in the hearts of all who believed in the magic of time. With that, our story ends here. Sweet dreams, my dear friend, and good night.